Senator, thanks for being here. Let's start with your time in Topeka. You've been there a while. In 2012, you supported the tax reform bill pushed by then Governor Sam Brownback, which led to some massive budget shortfalls, affected public services, education funding. You also fought the veto override, reversing those changes. In a world where affordability is key right now, how do you make sure that Kansas doesn't pull back too much spending? I know tax cuts are top of mind here, and make the same mistake again.
So I'm going to have to push back on the way you framed that question, because I have always supported tax cuts. Because quite frankly, more money in the pockets of the people is always better than more money in the pockets of government. And it was really a spending side too. You know, a deficit has two sides to the ledger, right? Both the revenues and the expenses. And the way that got implemented, the way that got pushed, it was actually some of those on the left side of the ledger that actually expanded the size of that tax cut, hoping that it wouldn't get through. But it did. So yeah, I've always supported more money in the pockets for the people.
The Kansas Department of Commerce had talked a lot earlier this month even about industrial revenue bonds meant to attract and expand businesses, saying that the state is leaving more than $1 billion, I believe, in potential property taxes on the table. I know that you want to fix property tax and reform. Would that be worth revisiting? Because I know much of that money could potentially go to cities, counties, schools, that sort of thing.
Well, every policy is always worth revisiting to see what's being successful, what's not. Of course, that assumed everything would have come that did come without that incentive in place, right? So that's a number that would be if everybody came regardless of the incentive, and that's not necessarily the truth.
We've seen a few failed attempts in the legislature. The legislature has passed it, but the governor's vetoed it on property tax reform. What would you do if elected governor to finally get that over the finish line? Yeah,
there's two things you need to do, because the state, I mean, one of the complex things is that all that is local spending at this point, right? Property tax. But it is not responsible to keep it going down the path it's on. Well, that is the one tax. I mean, I'm not an attorney, and I don't know how property tax ever became constitutional, but apparently it is. But it's the one tax that taxes people on an unrealized gain, right? No matter if your house goes up in value, doesn't mean you have more money in the bank. Right, and so we have to stop these massive, rapid increases coming forward. That'll take a constitutional amendment, so you have to control that front door and allow for reasonable, smaller increases, not this out of control. And then you need to come in and have some revenue limits on the backside to just control spending. Allow local government to grow, but at reasonable amounts. You know, inflation, population margins, not excessive growth without the voice of the people.
What's the top issue that you need to battle in Kansas right now?
Oh, by far property tax. It's everywhere I've gone in the state of Kansas. Property tax has been number one. Now, you get out northwest, you talk a lot about water, right? They've got issues out there. Hayes isn't over an aquifer, but property tax is still number one. And then when you go southwest, you hear a lot more about transportation, 4-lane highways, getting people moved. And but still, property tax was number one down there. So it's a big, diverse state. Lots of different communities. I mean, Johnson County is a little bit of an anomaly in the state as I move around, but it is still property tax is everywhere.
How do you be a governor for all of Kansas, as you said, diverse as it is?
It is. Oh, well, you listen to everybody, and then you go to make the best decision you can for the state as a whole.
You mentioned water, and that is an issue that's facing Kansas, and many experts have said that. Data centers are also quickly becoming an issue and criticized for the use of water and natural resources, I should say. You've taken some heat for a bill you supported last year giving data centers developers 20-year tax breaks if they invest at least $250 million. It did have bipartisan support, so we need to point that out. Do you regret that decision, though, given some of the pushback that we've seen lately on data centers, and how do you rectify that?
Yeah, no, what I like you pointing out is that just lately that conversation has become very hot. When that bill was passed back then, the conversation, what it was, and it was forward thinking, it was the most restrictive bill in the country at the time. That's a little misstatement to say that there's a 20-year tax abatement. It's not a tax abatement. It was a 20-year sales tax exemption on equipment only. Like a farmer doesn't pay sales tax on his tractor for the inputs of the process, except that's a lifetime. This was limited, and it mandated they pay their sales tax on the power, which is their major. It accommodated use of power, because the guardrails you have to have in place. You need to make sure that thing is paying full cost of its power, not throwing anything off to the residents around it. You would need to make sure even upgrades that might need to happen to the grid to provide it, that the full cost of any power would be absorbed by the data center. You have to make sure they're not unduly using resources, like water or even land usage.
Would you support environmental protections?
Oh yeah. I mean, you got to, and then even once all those guardrails are met, then even you still need to have it be a local decision, right? Because there are places they don't make sense and places they do.
We mentioned the Kansas experiment, its impact on education. There are still issues with education funding in the state, and that's something the legislature's kind of gone back and forth on. How do you make sure that, and special education funding as well, how do you make sure that schools are funded, public and I know that you also are for school choice as well?
Yeah, I am. And so, I mean, a little bit, I'm going to push back again on, you talk about how the Kansas experiment. One of the experiments is just money with no outcome into public education. I mean, we need to have an outcome that matches our investment. And we have a real literacy problem in Kansas right now with 3 out of 4 fourth graders not reading at grade level. So we have an issue we have to tackle. Now, the Gannon case was dropped. The Supreme Court decided that the schools were fully funded. Current Governor Kelly talks about how she has funded schools. So the determination is that the schools are fully funded, and we need to continue to invest in them, because that's the way, no matter what you have, school choice or not, that is the primary way people will be educated. But we have to take literacy seriously. I'm looking at some things they've done in Mississippi where they've gone from 48th into the top 10 in literacy. We've got to do some of those same things. We were able to take cell phones out of the classrooms this last year. That was a bipartisan effort. I'd love to see us figure out a way to incentivize the good teachers. Right now we have a bit of a perverse incentive through our retirement system to incentivize good teachers to become administrators. And now we're administrative heavy inside the system. And we just have some system changes that we need to make to improve it for our kids.
You talk about improving literacy. Does that mean bolstering public education funding?
Oh yeah. I mean, you'd have to bolster public but when I talk about school choice, it's for that low income kid. You know, particularly you get into inner city Wichita, inner city KCK, you have kids that are basically trapped by their zip code and don't have the resources or a choice. Those parents and those kids need to have freedom to choose.
You have a wide field of fellow candidates this year in the primaries. What's setting you apart?
2 things I would say. One, I am average Kansan, right? I am the guy that's been up and down, worked 2 jobs most of my life, and so I relate to people better. And the second thing is simply my record, and that's why all these endorsements have come my way. Whether it's Kansans for Life, the NRA, the Kansas Chamber, all those endorsements have come my way because I'm that battle-tested, proven leader. So what sets me apart is I'm not just talk out on the stump. You can actually go look. I'm not a gamble. You can look and see where I've been, how I've been able to lead, what we've been able to accomplish, and that's what sets me apart.
You mentioned working the 2 jobs. You've been getting a lot of flack, particularly from one of your opponents, about one of your jobs with Wichita State University, funded in part by the Koch Foundation. And I believe the term that they're throwing around is a no-show job. Tell us about what you do at this job and how often you go.
That is something I'm so proud of. Been there 10 years, stood that back up. We were able to open the doors 2017. We get non-traditional kids that aren't typically looking to go into higher education, engaged. And it was because I was that kid, right? I was the kid that was tearing up my dad's tools, trying to create things and make things. And it's the stories, the lives that have changed that make me so proud of what I do there. And you mentioned the story, what I was talking about, there was a little story on it down in Wichita, KWCH. The guy that they said that showed up and said, I'm never there, isn't even a member, it's never been in my facility.
I know a number of newspapers have also gone to campus and tried to ask about you and figure out if you're there. How often are you on campus?
I'm on campus at least once a week, sometimes more than that. But my job is remote, predominantly. But it's building the relationships there. And every one of the people that I've found in any of those articles, none of them are members that are long-term people that would know. So it's like you walk into a bank and trying to figure out who the president of the bank is.
Bottom line, what would you like to say to voters right now?
I'd like to say vote for me. I mean, if you want a consistent member that you can see the record, if you can see, go look, whatever your issue is, life, Second Amendment, business, taxes, spending, go check it out. Because I'm proud of the record I stand on. What I would encourage people to do is look at my record for what it is, not what some opponent in the campaign's telling you it is falsely.
Right. Appreciate it. Senator Masterson, thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.